Our first project is orthographic exercises drawing number 1. So when you guys sit down to do this, I'd like you to sit down and read through this first section here. You got your learning outcomes, learning objectives, your prerequisites. So you really need to read orthographic drawings part A and B prior to starting this drawing. And then you want to proceed with this drawing once this kind of concept makes sense after you've read through those 2 modules. So this is your isographic view up here of this little step, and then you have your 2 or 3 views, I should say, that are orthographic. So what we're going to do is we're going to have these isographic views, and then we have to convert those into orthographic views. So top view, front view, and right view. And I'll draw the first one here for you guys just to walk you through how to do it. And then if you guys have any questions about the other ones not making sense, you can reach out to me and I can walk you through some of them as well, do some sketches. So the first one is object 1. It's this little house. And like the module says here, we don't really have any dimensions, exact dimensions. We just want to be able to draw it proportionate. So that's where we have to kind of establish, as we're drawing, the different kind of sizes of things so that it looks proportionate to the isographic view that we have here. So I'm going to set this up here in front of me, out of the camera, and then I'll start drawing here. We always want to do orthographics in the same manner. So you always want to start with your top view, your front view, and your right view. And then you're going to need a 45-degree line through here, which I haven't done yet, and I'll do here in a moment. And that will allow us to transfer lines from our top view down over here, which I will talk through as we do. So I do need a 45-degree there, so let me grab my set square. Throw that line in there for us. There we go. And then let's sit down and get going on this top view. Should actually probably start from the middle of the drawing. Let's go about this far, and this will be the porch. And that way we've got distance between the middle of our drawing and the start of our object. So we'll go, this will be the front of the porch. We want to transfer those lines all the way through so that they pass through this 45-degree line. You don't have to go beyond that other than for clarity for yourself when you want to transfer these down, but we'll need those points later on. So don't just draw them in the one view. Pass those lines through. So that's the porch. And then how thick does that porch look? Or how much is the depth is where we need to kind of make that judgment call now. So I'm going to just, for clarity, move my square up so I can see, so I'm not getting my head in the camera view here. But I think right about there is where I want the thickness of the porch to be. Draw that. And then what's the total width of the house? So this here, between here and here, is porch. And what would the width of the house then be? How many times is it the thickness of the porch, I guess, is the way I would look at it. So I'd say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's about 5 times this thickness. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, right about where I'm sitting with my square is pretty close. And if we're unsure of whether it's in the right spot or not, we can always make adjustments as we go here to see. So then the ridge will be halfway through that. And with these, we shouldn't need to really do much measuring. This is more just making those judgment calls as we draw. So that's about half, and I mean, that looks good to me. And then you see the chimney goes from the ridge to the back of the house, so then we have to throw in another line here for the chimney. And I say it's about half of the thickness of half of the house, so a 1/4 point. So I'm going to go right there, give myself a little mark to line my square up to. I don't need this line to run all the way through the whole building, but construction lines, good practice to get into, to do them all the way across. And they're quite light, you're not going to see them clearly as you go, but especially for me marking these drawings, it will help a lot if you guys do a really good job with these construction lines, and I can kind of see what you were thinking with your layout and what you ended up with a finished project. And that way I can give you some feedback if things go askew, don't look right later on. I can give you some comments based on what I see for lines. So next, let's throw in some vertical lines here. This is the center of our drawing, and we had that kind of distance between the center of the drawing and the object, so I want to establish that same spacing more or less, and this will be for our chimney, and we want to make sure with this line that we are going far enough down onto the front view to transfer these lines down there. These will be the same lines we use down there. So then how thick is that chimney compared to how wide it is? I want to say about there. So that's the outside chimney, inside chimney. Now let's go and draw the entire width of the house. So if our house is that deep, how wide is it? I'll say it's about twice as wide as it is thick. So it's rectangular in shape. I'm going to go right there. And we'll see how that looks, if it ends up looking proportionate or not. And then where would the center of that be? Right about there. And then we have our, so that's the center ridge of that porch that I just drew there. That's the center of the house. And then we need to draw and define the porch itself. So does the porch look like it's just half of the span, or is it a little wider than half? I kind of feel like it's a little wider than half, maybe like 5/8. I'm going to make that judgment call right about there. And then we'll do the same spacing over here. And then just have a look. Yeah, I think that looks pretty decent. So let's switch to a 4H now, and I want to darken up some of these lines. So remember, this is our top-down view. So let's start at the bottom and work our way up. So the first thing I'm going to be marking is the porch, the front of the porch. Just to there. And then we have the, I'm going to switch my square here so I can see again. Front wall. Goes to the edge of the porch, and then over on this side to the corner of the house, which is right there because the chimney is next to it. So remember what these construction lines are as you guys work through this. Then we have the ridge of the house, which is right here. Goes from one side to the other, stopping past the chimney to the outside of the chimney because the chimney line is the same as the ridge. And then we have the back wall of the chimney, and then the last one is the back wall of the house. Right there. So now let's throw in our vertical lines. We'll switch to our set square. I like the 30/60 for these lines just because it's got a shorter leg on the one side of it. It's not so unruly. Okay, now the last thing that we need to do for object lines, at least with this view, is we need to establish the peak of that porch roof. And so I think it's about 3/4 of the way up the ridge, so I'm going to say about there. And that will give us a point that, and then we're going to need to switch back to our set square to draw these object lines, and it's a matter of just lining up those points. Depending on how you've picked your dimensions, that might work out. Like mine looks like it's almost a 30-degree angle, but that's just by fluke. So this would be something that you would actually just need to freehand your square. Set it up to one point and then line up the other point and then draw your construction line. Or your object line, I should say. And then one last line for object lines is the ridge itself, which is then just from here up to the front of the porch. There we go. So before we move on though, what other lines would we maybe need to look at adding here? So we've got our object lines as far as we can see, right? We've got back of the house, ridge, front of the house on both sides. We've got our chimney, we've got our porch, front of the porch, where it intersects with the main roof and the ridge of the porch. What are we missing? Well, we've got a door in there, right? So if we look at that isometric view, we can see that that door, if you compare the depth of the inset of the door to the projection of the porch, the door doesn't go back as far as the porch itself. So the door line wouldn't be at the same line as our wall itself. I kind of feel like it's about half. So I'll switch back to a construction pencil and we'll throw in some construction lines that will guide our hidden lines. As you can see, we're looking down. We wouldn't actually see this door from a down view, and we do want to add hidden lines for clarity. So we'll run that all the way through because we'll need that construction line later. And then there's the width of the door. So the width of the door looks like to me that it's maybe about half of the width of the porch, maybe slightly less. But let's just see what half looks like. So if we go about halfway here and halfway here, I don't know. I feel like that's a bit of a wide door. Let's try bringing it in a little bit. Let's make it a little bit better. Let's draw these lines down. If we're not happy with these, we can just erase them or not use them. They're just a very light construction line. I feel like that's not terrible. So then the last thing we need to do is we need to add the hidden lines, which are a solid line, but they're done in the same hardness as our object lines, and they are a dashed line. So we'll actually use our ruler and we'll follow those construction lines, getting nice clean, evenly spaced, and evenly length dashes. I like to make sure that my dashes start and stop at the corners for clarity. And then we need 2 little vertical dashes to establish the sides of the opening. So again, like I'll start in the corner, give myself a space, and stop at the front. So that's our little hidden line for our door. And now that view is completed. So now we can move down to the front view, which is the one we want to do next. And as you can see, we've got all of our width spacing lines already established. So now all we need to do is give ourselves our horizontals. So I want to work top down so that our views are proportionate. So if we have this much distance between the edge of our object in the middle, we want to go with that same space, and that will be our chimney, top of chimney. We'll draw this line all the way across, and then we say our chimney protrudes past the top of our house slightly, maybe about the same as the narrowest part of it, let's say. So move down until you've got kind of like a square there. It looks pretty square to me. So then that would be our top of our house, the ridge of the house. And then let's establish the overall height of the house. I want to say right about there. And the way I do it like that, the why I do it like that is because then we split the difference for our wall and roof, because to me they look like they are equal in height. You could do it the other way as well. No harm in doing it that way. It's just the way I like to do it. So we have ridge to eave and eave to ground. And then remember we had our ridge is about a quarter of the way up. So we want to go here, about a quarter. Then what other thing do we need to set? We need to set our door, don't we? Our door isn't quite as tall as our eave. It's a little bit lower than our eave. So if that's our eave height up there, we'll set the door slightly below that. Across. So now we can take our 4H and we can darken up some of these lines. So we make heads and tails of what's going on here. So I'll start chimney again, do a dark line for across the top, move down. This is our ridge, so we'll stop at the chimney, won't go through. So start at the outside edge of the house, go up to the chimney and stop. The next is our eave, which is right here. We just have a little chunk on the left, and then to the opposite side of the porch, a chunk up to the chimney and stop, and then we have the bottom, or at the ground, which is the full width, including the chimney this time. There we go. That's our horizontals, other than our door, which I skipped, so let me go back and throw in the top of the door. I like to do all the horizontals first and then fill in the verticals and then do the diagonals or the angled lines last, but I just particular. So we'll do the chimney, the other side of the chimney, right hand side of the porch, the door, right hand side again, my square move. So reset my t-square. The left-hand side of the door, the left-hand side of the porch, and the left-hand side of the whole house. There we go. So now all we need to do is do these angled lines for the ridge of the porch. So going from that center mark and the height of the porch that we have there with construction lines, and down to the corner of the porch once we got that lined up. Draw that one. Switch my square around. And do the other. There we go. It's looking pretty fine. So the only thing that we want to look at here before we move on is any hidden lines that we need on this view. So we wouldn't have any hidden lines for the chimney. We don't have any hidden lines in this for this wall or this roof here. The door is shown there, so don't have any hidden lines there. And over on this side there wouldn't be any hidden lines. This line we wouldn't darken through, as you see I haven't done, because the porch actually protrudes out if you look back at that isometric view, and it's a smooth face, so there shouldn't be a line there. Now we could throw a hidden line in there across here at the eave height for the eave on the opposite side of the house. If you look back here, like we'd be looking at this portion of the eave as a hidden line, but I don't really feel like that's entirely necessary. It's just technically correct, but we'll leave it out for now. And now we have to move over and do our right hand view. So this is where we come back to this diagonal that we drew through here. What we want to do is we want to establish those lines that we spaced for the top view, and we want to throw them in down here now so they establish our vertical lines. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use our square, our t-square, and then our set square. Spin this around the other way so it's a little taller. Let's start at the back of the house and we'll move up to the front. So if we follow the back of the house over to where it hits that diagonal, and then we move our square along until we reach that intersection point. Make sure we're using the right pencil here. This should be construction lines again. We want to take that line down as a plumb or a vertical line. And we do that with each one as we go from back to front. So now this is the back of the chimney, and we'll plumb that down. And then we've got the next line we run into is the front of the chimney, which is also our ridge of our house. And the next point we come to is that ridge line of the porch roof. And then the next line we're going to run into here is the front of the house. And then we have our door, back of the door, and then we have the front of the porch. So that's what that will look like now after we've run all those lines through there. And now the right hand view of our house is complete, as you can see, but we're missing some darker object lines to make that view clear. So this is where I'll kind of walk you through how to interpret that mess of lines there now. So let's start with the chimney. We've got top chimney here, and we have width of chimney that we brought across over to here. So this line here will be our chimney here, and top of chimney. So this would be top and width of chimney right here. Throw in one line there, and then we'll throw in the verticals You can do this anyway. You can do the back of the house. You can do any of these lines as long as it makes sense to you. I'm just starting with the chimney because I think it will make the most sense to you guys to kind of like establish your perspective here. So that is the chimney of the house drawn all the way to the ground, and then I'll throw in the ground line. For this one I am going to go all the way from front to back. So I'll just confirm that I'm in the right spot, go from the front of the porch and then down. So from right here all the way to the next line past the chimney, and that would be the back of the house. So now I've established the bottom. Now let's establish the back wall of the house while we're here. And it just goes up to the eave line. So right from eave down to the ground, that's how I'm going to draw that. And then let's establish the front of the house. So if you're unclear which line that is, let's just look here. You got the front of the house, follow that over down my square, and then this is the top line of the eave. So we'll start at the top and work down. So that's the house, and then this is the porch, which is this second line over. That middle line is that doorway that we've got there. And so this line will go a little bit higher, right? Because it will go from the peak of the roof all the way to the ground. So the peak is this line, and we'll go down to the ground. And then this door, cheat and kind of work ahead here. This door is going to be a hidden line, is it not, right? Because of the right-hand view, we're not actually seeing it. So we'll throw in the construction lines, but we'll put them in as hidden lines. So dashes, even dash, even space. That's it for verticals. Now let's throw in some horizontals. Since we're just working on that door, let's finish it off. So there's a hidden horizontal line across the top for the top of that door. And then we have the eave line of the porch, which is right here. It goes back to the eave line of the side of the house. And then we have, where's there? Next thing we're going to need to do here is we're going to have to draw the peak of the house before we can kind of see where the ridge of the porch is going to go. So we've got top of the ridge of the house in that view, and then we've got the ridge of the house in this view. So it's the side of the chimney right there, down to the edge here. And then, am I going to draw that all the way through there? No, I'm not, because the chimney sits in front of that. So it's a hidden line. So I want to draw both of them at the same time. So I'm going to do dash through there. And then it's the same point at the top down to the intersection of the porch and house eave, which is here. And this one is a solid line from top to bottom. And then there's our ridge line. Magically appears where it intersects that one. So we stop where we intersect. So now let's just go over this real quick and make sure we've got everything. So we've got our chimney, we've got a hidden section of our ridge of our house, we've got the rest drawn here, we've got the back wall, the bottom, we've got the chimney, the front, the porch, the front of the porch, the eave of the porch, and the door. So there we have our completed views for top, front, and right-hand side.